What if the biggest money shift of your lifetime doesn't start with a crash, but with a quiet signature in Washington, D.C.? Now, right now, Donald J. Trump is preparing to do something that no modern president has successfully pulled off: reset the leadership of the Federal Reserve and permanently change who controls interest rates, money creation, and even the direction of the U.S. economy. Now, at the center of this storm is none other than Jerome Powell, whose term ends on May 15th, 2026. Now, President Trump has made it very clear: Jerome Powell is out, and the next Fed chair will agree with him. Now, that's not speculation. This is on record. So why in the world does this matter to you? Because every mortgage payment, every car loan, every savings account, even every paycheck that you earn, it's downstream from decisions that are made directly inside the Federal Reserve, an institution that is not elected. The Federal Reserve isn't even federal. In fact, it's not federal in the way that most people think, and yet quietly decides who wins and who loses financially. Now, Washington knows what's coming. This is why the Department of Justice, the Supreme Court, and even the Republican senators are scrambling to slow this thing down. And it's exactly why voices like Larry Kudlow are openly warning about 2026. So here's the real question: when the Fed resets, will your money be positioned to benefit, or will you be the one paying for it? Now, stick with me, guys, because this is where everything changes. Drop a like and subscribe. Okay, let's start with the one detail that removes all speculation from this conversation. May 15th, 2026. This is the exact date that Jerome Powell's term as chair of the Federal Reserve officially expires. Not hypothetically, not politically, by law. So here's the part most people missed. Federal Reserve governors, they don't serve 4-year terms like presidents. They serve 14-year terms. Let me go ahead and repeat that for the folks in the back. The Federal Reserve governors, they serve 14-year terms. Now, that design was intentional to insulate monetary policy from politics. And because those terms are so long, moments where a sitting president can directly reshape Fed leadership are rare. So this is one of those moments right here. So when Jerome Powell's term ends, Donald J. Trump doesn't need a lawsuit. He doesn't need a confrontation. He gains leverage automatically. The chair position becomes vacant, and the president has the authority to nominate a replacement aligned with his economic philosophy. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, it was actually a good opportunity for Trump not to win the last election, for him to win this election and be able to call who the next Fed chair will be. Now, I don't know where you stand on that, but this is why this date matters more than any Fed meeting or press conference between now and then. Everything you're hearing, the legal fights, the Senate resistance, the media panic, it's happening because the clock cannot be stopped. Now, this is not theory, it's calendar-locked reality. And once that date arrives, the balance of power inside the Fed changes immediately. So this conflict didn't start in 2026. It was actually inevitable the moment Donald J. Trump and Jerome Powell ended up on opposite sides of a monetary philosophy. Now, Trump has been explicit for years. He wants lower interest rates, faster economic growth, and a Federal Reserve that actually supports expansion. He actually has said openly that the United States should have some of the lowest interest rates in the world. Now, from Trump's perspective, high rates choke growth, punish borrowers, and they slow momentum. Jerome Powell refused, not because of personal animosity, but because of structure. The Federal Reserve is designed to operate independently from the White House. Its mandate prioritizes inflation control and employment stability, not presidential agendas. Jerome Powell consistently defended that independence, even under public pressure, criticism, and political heat. So this is where the tension escalated. President Trump didn't just disagree with Jerome Powell's decisions. He questioned why an unelected institution held that much power without accountability. Is anyone else wondering that same question? Well, Jerome Powell, meanwhile, viewed presidential pressure as a threat to the Fed's credibility. So this was never about one rate cut or one meeting. It was about who ultimately controls money in the U.S. system. And so once those positions hardened, replacement became inevitable. Not emotional, not retaliatory, but structural. And well, that sets the stage for pretty much everything else that comes next. And this is where a lot of people get caught flat-footed. New Year's resolutions always sound great on January 1st, but by January 10th, most are already forgotten. But this year, there's one resolution that actually matters: getting your finances in order before the system shifts again. Now, for a lot of people, that doesn't start with chasing growth. It starts with balance, with protection, with asking a very simple question. Well, what happens to my savings if markets swing or policy changes faster than expected? That's where Noble Gold Investments come in. Now, for over a decade, they've helped investors add physical gold and silver to their portfolios as a way to reduce risk, not speculate, not gamble, but hedge against uncertainty. Now, if you've never looked at precious metals as a part of your strategy, this is a very good moment to at least understand the option. There's no pressure. Just go ahead and click the link down below. Go to RonYatesGold.com. That's RonYatesGold.com. And of course, if you prefer, you can call my friends on the phone at the phone number right here down below, 877-646-5347. Now, with that in context, let's go ahead and zoom out because this part really explains why the pressure in Washington is suddenly intensifying. So this is the moment to zoom out because this story was never really about Jerome Powell as a person. It's really about who controls the levers that decide how money moves through the system. Now, interest rates and money creation are power. They decide whether borrowing is easy or painful, whether assets inflate or cool, whether savings grow or quietly shrink. And for decades, that power has lived inside the Federal Reserve, largely insulated from voters and presidents alike. Now, from President Donald J. Trump's perspective, that setup is unaccountable. You can replace a president every 4 years. You can vote senators out, but Fed governors can just sit there for over a decade while shaping outcomes that affect every household in the country. That's why this feels bigger than personnel. Trump isn't just signaling a preference change. He's challenging the idea that monetary power should exist without political feedback at all. In fact, that's why emotions are high, language is sharp, and institutions are reacting defensively. Because once you understand that money policy is political power, that intensity makes sense. Now, here's where it gets worse, okay? To understand why Washington is reacting the way that it is, you really have to understand how the Federal Reserve actually makes decisions. And most importantly, this is where the math matters. So there are 12 voting members on the Federal Open Market Committee, also known as the FOMC. 7 are governors that are appointed by the president. 5 are regional Federal Reserve Bank presidents. Now, for any policy change, rate cuts, hikes, or money expansion, you need a simple majority, just 7 votes. Now, right now, Trump-aligned appointees already make up a significant portion on that board. When Jerome Powell's chair term expires on May 15, 2026, replacing him doesn't just change the face of the Fed, it changes the vote count. This is not opinion or ideology, it's arithmetic. With Powell replaced, Trump moves closer to a voting majority that favors lower interest rates and a more expansionary stance. This is why every appointment fight matters. This is why every confirmation hearing suddenly becomes front page news. And this is why resistance isn't subtle anymore. So once you see the board as a numbers game instead of a mystery box, panic clicks into place. Institutions aren't reacting to rhetoric. They're reacting to the possibility that the votes are about to flip. So this is where the story stops being theoretical and it starts getting messy. Beyond replacing Jerome Powell, the Trump administration has been pushing to reshape the Federal Reserve more broadly, and one name just keeps on coming up. Lisa Cook, a sitting Fed governor. Trump's team has explored removing Cook before her term expires, which would open another seat for a Trump-aligned appointment. Now, that single move would dramatically accelerate Trump's path to a voting majority inside the Federal Reserve. So the big question is, well, what the heck happened? The Supreme Court stepped in, at least for now, blocking her removal and signaling that formal hearings would begin in January. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this tells you exactly how high the stakes actually are. Fed governors almost never end up at the center of the Supreme Court battles. And if you layer on top of that this is the Department of Justice with investigations and pressure narratives swirling around Jerome Powell himself, at the same time, Republican senators have openly vowed to block Trump's Fed nominees. This is the "they tried to block him" moment. Courts, senators, even federal agencies aren't acting in isolation. They're reacting to the same looming shift. Take a step back and look at the pattern. Seriously, guys, just have a look around. When institutions feel secure, they move slowly. When they feel threatened, they move all at once. And now Washington is moving all at once. You got senators from Trump's own party signaling resistance. You have the Department of Justice suddenly in the conversation. You have the Supreme Court stepping into Fed governance. This is something that almost never happens. And you have media coverage framing every move as dangerous or unprecedented. This is not a coincidence. This is reaction, okay? This is not fear mongering. This is behavioral analysis. Power structures only defend themselves this aggressively when the math no longer favors them. And so as we just walk through the voting math inside of the Federal Reserve, it's shifting whether anyone likes it or not. So if Trump were bluffing, this would be all that much quieter. If nothing was changing, there would be no urgency. But urgency is everywhere. And the most important takeaway here isn't who you support politically, it's what this tells you about what's coming next. Institutions don't panic unless something real is about to change. And that brings us to the part that really hits your wallet directly. And this is exactly how money quietly leaves people's lives. Not all at once, but one unexpected bill at a time. Now, I heard from a retiree recently who dipped into his savings for the first time in years, not for a vacation, not for an emergency, but because his Medicare plan didn't cover what he thought it did. Now, that's the danger of assumptions and a system that just keeps on changing. Yes, the system keeps changing. In fact, healthcare costs, they don't announce themselves. They just show up in the mail. And then all of a sudden, you're pulling from money that you worked very hard for your whole life to protect. This is why I partner with Chapter. Chapter helps protect your savings by tightening your Medicare coverage before those quiet withdrawals become routine. Now, most people, they don't wait. They're already calling the phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, 909-563-8279, or they're clicking the link in the description down below the video, askchapter.org/Ron, to get clarity, because protecting what you've built matters just as much as growing it. Now, let's get back to what Washington is reacting to, okay? Because the pressure only increases from here. Now, on the surface, lower interest rates sounds like a gift, right? Can anybody in the back agree with me? Right. Cheaper mortgages, lower car payments, easier borrowing. This is the headline most people stop at. But here's the part that usually gets left out. Lower rates don't benefit everyone equally. So when the Federal Reserve cuts rates, the biggest winners are asset owners, not wage earners. Stocks, real estate, private equity, and leveraged investments all become more attractive when borrowing is cheap. Investors can use low-cost debt to buy assets that rise faster than inflation. But if you're living primarily on wages or keeping money in savings, the math flips against you. Lower rates means savings accounts and CDs pay less money. Meanwhile, asset prices inflate faster, making homes, stocks, and even investments harder to afford if you're not already in. So what we're seeing here, we've actually seen this movie before. Over the past several years, inflation significantly outpaced wage growth. Meanwhile, markets surged. Now, this wasn't an accident. It was policy driven. So when Donald Trump pushes for lower rates, the key question isn't whether growth increases. It's who captures that growth. Now, history shows it flows upward first, long before it reaches any paychecks. This is why the Fed reset matters more than any headline suggests. Now, this is where the narrative gets more complicated and even more dangerous. Even as markets hit highs, voices like Larry Kudlow have openly raised the possibility of a 2026 recession. Now, that seems contradictory right up until you look under the hood. Yes, the GDP growth looks strong. Yes, markets are up, but the labor market actually tells a completely different story. Job growth has slowed not because demand collapsed, but because technology and AI are replacing labor faster than policy can respond. Here's the trap. Okay, cutting interest rates doesn't fix that problem. Lower rates can encourage borrowing and asset growth, but they don't force companies to hire humans when software is cheaper and more efficient. So policymakers are boxed in. Keep rates high and risk slowing growth further, or cut rates and risk reigniting inflation without meaningfully improving employment. That's the paradox that Larry Kudlow is pointing out right now. So this is why recession fears exist despite strong markets. It's not about the collapse, it's about imbalance. And when imbalance persists long enough, they eventually resolve, often painfully, which kind of leads us to the final and most important takeaway here. Most people are bracing for a crash because crashes are loud, they're visible, they make headlines, but the biggest wealth shifts in history, they don't usually happen that way. They happen quietly through inflation. Inflation is a silent tax. Nobody voted for it. Nobody sends you a bill for inflation, but it steadily reduces what your money can buy while rewarding the people positioned on the other side of it. So when rates fall and money creation rises, prices move first. Wages follow later, if they follow at all. And this is why the moment matters so much. If the Federal Reserve shifts toward lower rates and looser policy under Trump-aligned leadership, the system doesn't break overnight. It tilts. Asset values inflate, purchasing power erodes, and the gap between investors and consumers widens. This is not about panic or predictions. This is about pattern recognition. Now, we've seen this dynamic play out repeatedly over decades. Wealth doesn't disappear, it moves. And it usually moves toward people who already own assets, not those who are waiting for stability before acting. And so that's the uncomfortable truth. The biggest money shift rarely feels like chaos in real time. In fact, it feels more like normal life just getting slightly harder and harder every year, right up until you realize what actually happened. So the real question is not whether the Fed resets or whether rates go up or down. The real question is how you respond before the shift fully plays out. Now, smart people, they don't wait for certainty. They don't need perfect timing or dramatic signals. They focus on positioning and not prediction, because once policy changes are obvious, the advantage is already gone. One thing history makes clear: relying solely on savings during inflation is a losing strategy. Cash is stability, I get it, but it's not growth. It protects you from emergencies, but it does not protect you from a system where money loses value over time. So this is why market participation matters. Not speculation, not gambling, participation. Being on the side of the system that benefits when money expands rather than shrinks. Sitting out may feel safe, but safety has a cost when purchasing power declines. So this is not about politics. This is about incentives. Systems reward behavior that aligns with how they're designed. And as we move further and further into 2026, the design of this system is becoming clearer. So look, you don't need to predict every move. You just need to stop being the last one to react. This is how people get left behind, quietly.